They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple.
The illusion of choice is something only people with an innate ability of hindsight can begin to see clearly. This is better represented with the trolley problem, a choice most people are familiar with. For those who are not as familiar with the trolley problem, the general consensus of how it goes is like this. You see a runaway trolley moving towards 5 people laying on one side of the tracks. You're given a choice to pull the lever and change the course of the trolley before it hits the 5 people. However, the other track has one person lying on it as well. So you're faced with a choice. Let the 5 people die, or pull the lever, saving the 5, but directly being responsible for killing the 1. However, how much of a choice are you really given here? On one hand, you feel as if you can choose the outcome, but in reality, you have no choice. Both outcomes end up the same, so is it better to not choose and walk away, or to regret the decision of making either one of the choices, to pull the lever or not to? As humans, we have become so infatuated with the thought that we are in control, and the second we're not, we slip into a depression where, no matter what, we aren't happy with the outcome of any situation. In 1965, there was an experiment performed to test the effects of choice known as learned helplessness. The experiment consisted of 2 dogs that were put into a cage where both would be shocked at the same time, but in one of the dogs' cage, there was a switch to stop the shocking in both of them. After the first couple of shocks, when one of the dogs realized that he had the ability to stop the shocking, that dog began to return to a normal state of mind with the thought process that when the shocking starts, to simply flip the switch and then go back to eating. However, the other dog, even after the shocks became shorter and shorter in time, it began to slip into a constantly confused and depressed state as he had no control. And bad things would just happen, and then they'll stop, and it would just have to move on. Now take this experiment and reverse it, and you're given the illusion of no choice. As humans, when life happens, we don't really have any other option but to accept the events and move on. Like, what could we do? We never had a choice on whether whatever happened would happen, but it's harder to accept when you do have a choice. Having to bear the thought that the other option might have ended with better results. That choice is what causes people not to be able to accept the reality with whatever you're confronted with in life. This is where we get to Sophia and her illusion of not having a choice and being forced to choose an outcome she never wanted. Sophia is from a show called Chunibyo Demo Koi ga Shita. Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions is the English title of it. It focuses on Yuta and his relationship with Rika, a girl with 8th grade syndrome. Sophia is introduced in the 2nd season of the show as the main reason Yuta as a kid developed 8th grade syndrome, and was overall a big influence on who he was as a kid. But something he never noticed was how big of an influence he was on Sophia. The feeling Sophia had for Yuta, as she started to spend more and more time with Yuta as kids, caused her to come to a crossroads of sorts. She was stuck between continuing to live in her imagination as the magical devil girl and set her feelings aside, or to leave all that behind and accept her feelings for Yuta and embrace them as a normal, regular girl named Sophia. But to her, both results ended the same way. In both situations, she's going to end up alone. She thought that if she was no longer the magical devil girl Saturn, Yuta just wouldn't accept her as Sophia. So she chose to push her feelings aside and swore to never change. After years passed, Yuta is in high school and he grew out of his 8th grade syndrome phase. She came back. Though everything was okay and she still firmly believed that staying the same and never changing was also okay, she thought this until her feelings for Yuta came back. This reaches a climax when she goes to fight Yuta, which is just in the show a metaphor for Yuta telling her about life and Rika while she just tries to get rid of her feelings. It isn't until she asks what he likes about Rika where she realizes that she and her are the same. And if Yuta could love Rika, he could have also loved her too. Instead of getting rid of her feelings she rediscovered for him, she had to then face a reality that she never didn't have a choice, but rather she always had one, from the very beginning. No matter what you chose, if you felt forced to say or do something without realizing you had another option, you will forever regret that decision, even if it was the right one. Because Sophia put aside her feelings for Yuta, Rika was able to be with the only person who truly understands her and loves her for who she is. But instead of thinking about the good her actions caused, all she could think about is, what if she got to choose? Would the situation she would have ended up in be better for her? Instead of standing from the sidelines watching as someone else make the person you love happy, would you be the one making them happy instead? After having to understand all this, and after being hit with it so suddenly, she was left on the verge of tears. But as Yuta left, she was able to hold them in, and she let her imagination come in and protect her from the reality that seemingly lied to her. Her being able to hold in her tears was a victory for her. But nevertheless, a victory short-lived, because he came back with the umbrella he found for her. The face of the lie told to her by herself that she had no choice came back as soon as she thought she won, to show her that this time she really did have no choice. Nothing could save her from this reality in that moment, not even her imagination, as seen as her sticker falls off her face when she starts crying and runs away. She claims she will never change and she never has before, but really, the more she stayed the same, the more things seemed to change. She never said goodbyes, but after everything was discussed in later episodes, she turns to Yuta and simply says, "Bye-bye," after finally defeating him in battle, which that just means putting aside the feelings again, but this time while having to accept that she has to put them aside because there truly was no choice for her this time, unlike the previous time where she did have a choice but just didn't know. Hitting her with the reality that she had the ability to change the situation, but ripping that ability away as soon as she realized it. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Don't expect another video like this. Honestly, this is more of a way to vent, and I just needed to express this in somewhat of an understandable way, so I myself can understand why I genuinely teared up when I first watched the scene, then again when I had to re-experience it all when writing this. So I guess something to take away is, no matter what, try, and you might just be happier.